So welcome back this morning. In terms of practicalities, for those of you who weren't here yesterday, if there's a fire alarm, can you just assemble at number 14 Queen Street, which is to the left when you exit the building. Tea and coffee and lunch today will be served in the library, just through that door there. And we've got veggie and vegan options. If you've got specific dietary needs, then you let us know about them, then the caterers will have a specific meal prepared for you. That's the Wi-Fi code again, if anyone needs it, and the hashtag for tweeting about the meeting. We will be taking photo and video because the meeting's being streamed online, obviously. And if you need an attendance certificate, could you email us at events@hsa.org.uk and we'll send you one. This is a quick reminder, you can have a discount code on U4's book series. If you would like to order any of those books, just use VET20 at wiley.com. This is a new announcement. This is a conference that our sister charity U4 is involved with, celebrating 200 years of animal welfare legislation, and looking at the future of animal law. So you might be interested in that meeting. So do have a look and consider registering if you are. www.martinsact200.co.uk. And my usual quick plug that if you appreciate these meetings or the work that the HSA does, please do consider joining or donating. We really appreciate people who support these meetings and access to them online. And just to remind you, as we said yesterday, we are looking for a new technical and strategic director, someone who's a real expert in humane slaughter and transport, who can help us keep advocating for high welfare beyond the farm gate, like Charlie's been doing for the last, how many years, Charlie? Several years. So, with all the public service announcements out of the way, this is one of the really nice parts of this meeting, that I get to present the Humane Slaughter Award every year, which recognises someone who's made an outstanding contribution to the welfare of livestock animals beyond the farm gate, either during transport or slaughter. And it's my absolute pleasure this year to announce that this year's winner is Dr. Mette Herskin. So I'll just tell you a little bit about why she won the award, and then we'll present her with her certificate. So Mette's an applied ethologist who has linked animal behaviour and veterinary science throughout her career, and in at least the last decade, she's been very focused on the welfare of animals during transport and at the slaughterhouse. So exactly the issues that the HSA recognises as real priority issues for animal welfare, and particularly that transport is at least as big an issue, if not a bigger issue, than welfare at slaughter. And Mette's particularly focused on some of the most vulnerable animals, such as cull cows and cull sows, and she's really involved in the discussion about fitness of transport for those kind of animals. And what we always want to recognise when we give an award like this is not just someone who's a scientist who's telling us what the problems are, but someone who works with the industry, with regulators, to move towards real-world improvements for animals. And that's exactly what Mette does, for instance, as a member of the EFSA Animal Health and Welfare Panel. So for all of those reasons and many more, I'm delighted to say congratulations to Mette Herskin as the 2022 winner of the Humane Slaughter Award. So, congratulations. There you go. So Mette's going to talk to us about some of her work now, and then what we've done at the end is schedule a longer Q&A session, so we can both talk about the work that Mette's going to talk about today, or wider issues about welfare at transport, or how Mette got to where she is in her career, or absolutely anything. So Mette, welcome, congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for giving me this award. Before I start my presentation, that is called The Case of the Cull Sow, I just would like to say a few words. I don't know if you noticed, the ones of you who are here in the room today, but I did put on some bulky shoes because I feel that if you see my real feet, the size of them inside my shoes, they are much too small to follow in the footprints of the other people who have received this award. But I will do my best. I do that every day, and I will do my best to carry on the work to persuade and to get knowledge about animal welfare beyond the farm gate. And my main interest is when animal welfare is challenged, and especially when dilemmas between societal interests and animal welfare are present. And there I think end of life is such an obvious example, and therefore I have also chosen today to talk about the cull sows, as were already mentioned. And for me, doing these studies, I think has been a very, very meaningful way to spend my time to collect evidence and work for transparency and also for solutions. And during the last 10 years, you will also hear that during my presentation, I have been more and more inspired by the One Welfare concept, by the recognition of the interconnection between the people who work with these animals, and of course also the environment around us. And I will try to emphasize that in my presentation today also. But just before I finish this short introduction, talking about people, I have not been alone on this journey to study journeys, let's say it like that. There are so many people who have helped me. Some are here in the room today, and it absolutely could not have happened without all of them and all of you. So I want to thank you all of you who have helped in this work, and I will try to, in my presentation, give you some examples of the cooperations we have done. Okay, to the presentation. Today I would like to talk about cull sows. And why did I choose them as today's topic? I did because I think that they deserve focus. They are both the cull sows and the people who are involved in their transport are often far away from everyday focus. And what I would like to today is to try to give you an overview based on the data that has been collected over the last approximately 10 years. And I will try to take you through the different stages of the pre-slaughter logistic chain for this type of animals, and also introduce you, as I said, to some of the people involved. It is a long chain, and I don't have time today to go through each link in the chain, but I will try to draw some attention to specifically the pre-transport part of the chain, the transport part of the chain, and also a short example of the post-transport part of the chain. But cull animals, I'm sorry I wasn't here yesterday, I could not be here yesterday, but I did see in the program, the very interesting program you had yesterday, that there was a lot of non-mammalian presentations, which I think is very, very interesting and very nice to see this work developing. So just should there be anyone in this room who does not know what a cull sow is, or a cull cow, then I just would like to very shortly introduce you to what this group of animals are. Cull animals are the, say, technical, the agricultural term we use for animals that are slaughtered, but where the meat is not the primary product. The primary product is their eggs, their milk, or their piglets. This means that the cull animals are the spent hens, the dairy cows, the sheep, or the sows, as I will talk about today. And when do we cull animals? Yeah, farmers decide which animals to cull and also when. And this means that within each of these cull animal categories, there is often a lot of heterogeneity. It is a heterogeneous group of animals. And I think it's fair to say across all of them that both on farm, during transport and during slaughter, very few studies have been done focusing on these categories of animals compared to the average animals sent for slaughter. Almost all scientific focus is on the average animals sent for slaughter or on these animals while they are producing on farm. So that's also one of the reasons why I thought they should be mentioned today. But this is the only time you, maybe I have one picture of it, Eric, I hope one extra, but aside from that, this is the only time you will see anything but sows. Today the sow will be in focus. And what can we say, what characterizes cull sows? Yeah, I come from Denmark, and in Denmark, approximately, it's more than 80% of sows end up being slaughtered at some stage. And it happens basically in all parities. Some are slaughtered very young, there could be many, many reasons, and some are slaughtered after many parities. In Denmark, the typical average parity for sows to be culled is around 5 to 6. And this means that in a particular herd, approximately half of the sows are slaughtered each year. So it's a lot of sows we're talking about. And they can be slaughtered at all stages of production. But there are two major peaks where slaughter happens, either when they are not able to get pregnant or after weaning of their piglets. And then it's especially the latter group I will talk about today. But we know also from Danish studies that the strategies the different farmers are using, how large a percentage of the sows that a single farmer sends to slaughter just after weaning differs very much. Some almost never slaughter sows directly after weaning, and some does it a lot. So there is a large variation between herds in how often this happens, which is one of the complicating factors when you want to study it. From more a societal point of view, we can say that the slaughter of cull sows are also characterized by them being only accepted at few slaughterhouses. There are many slaughterhouses for finishers. Not so many slaughterhouses can handle the big carcasses or big bodies of sows, which means that they will simply just have to face longer transport distances than the finishers do. I mean, sows are adult female pigs, and it's simply in their biology to behave quite aggressively towards each other if they are not together with sows that they have spent time with for some time. So there is a challenge in the transport of these animals that they will fight, and they are big, and it has large consequences for the others when they fight. As I said, when they are sent to slaughter just after weaning, they are in principle still lactating, and lactating mammals, what characterizes them is a very high metabolism, which can be a challenge when you are sent to slaughter. And of course, during recent decades, and especially recent years, the breeding for the highly prolific sows with a very high litter size has been very successful from a production point of view, but also adds to this very high metabolism in the ones that are just weaned, because they are producing a lot of milk at that stage, which makes them maybe even more sensitive to heat stress than they would have been. So we are, as Hugh said, we are definitely talking about a vulnerable group of animals. It differs. If you look into the scientific literature or into just literature to look for descriptions of how cull sows are for this pre-slaughter logistic chain, can you find descriptions of it? It's not so typical to see it described. But what I will describe for you here is how it happens in Denmark, and I know it happens quite differently in different countries. So maybe if you are interested, you need to go back to your own country and see how it happens in your country. It doesn't need to be like this at all. But in Denmark, when farmers send sows to slaughter, the sows are being collected by trucks that can keep maybe 70, 80 sows in a truck at one time. And even though farms are getting bigger and bigger, it's not so typical for farmers to slaughter that many. It doesn't happen that they slaughter a full, so that one farmer can fill a whole truck himself with sows. And that means that the trucks need to go from farm to collect the sows before they go to the slaughterhouse, which of course prolongs the journey for all the sows that are picked up in the beginning of the journey. And which also brings significant biosecurity issues from let's call it dirty trucks that need to approach other farms, and these dirty trucks even have animals from other farms in the truck. So therefore farmers are, for good reasons, concerned about biosecurity when trucks move around like that. And that has led to different kind of management that I will try to describe for you in a while, just after I finish here. But I just wanted to describe first that typically a farmer maybe weans sows weekly or every other week, but it differs quite a lot how often the cull sows are being picked up. Some farmers might have them picked up just after each weaning batch, and some keep them on farm for some days or weeks to have a bigger chunk of sows to send off. I think it depends a lot on the individual management on the farm, the number of pens available and stuff like that. And while the sows are waiting to be picked up, they can be grouped again, or they can be kept in stalls. It differs a lot from farm to farm. Because of the biosecurity issues, Danish farmers are using either what we call pickup pens, or what we have had difficulty finding a word, but I think we have ended up now calling it pickup vehicles. And I will try to explain to you what these are and what they mean for the sows. But before I do that, I just before I start describing my studies, I just want to take our studies a short interruption here, just to let you know that doing studies like that, on-farm studies, trying to describe what cull sows, describe their conditions and their clinical condition, to observe their behavior, is a lot of hard work, because these are large animals. You need to go around from farm to farm a lot. It involves a lot of driving. The working hours are never from 9 to 5. And if you are to look at the data afterwards, then they will always be complicated. So I want you to look at the text to the left and at the picture to the right and think that how can this be possible? Look at these people, how engaged they are. But they are like that, and this is the team of people that I work with. So I am so happy and proud for my team that they have the energy to continue to do these projects year after year together with me. I want to describe the results from one of these studies that all these people were involved in, where because I would like to first describe to you what do they actually look like, cull sows, before they go into these pens or vehicles. And there I would like to draw your attention to some data we collected some years ago involving a little more than 500 sows slaughtered over 1 year from 12 Danish herds. And as you can see, the parity of average around 5, as I said. But what I want you to notice is the numbers in the bottom of the slide. To notice the clinical registrations or recordings we did on the sows. And this is before they were grouped. This is before they were put into any truck. Nothing had happened to them. They were just chosen by the farmers to be slaughtered, and then we clinically examined them. So it is true that they are a vulnerable group. It comes in addition to what I just described to you. You can see that half of them had some some, not necessarily large wounds, but half of them were where we were able to find wounds on approximately half of them, scratches, udder lesions, vulvar lesions, and shoulder ulcers. So they are a group that are clinically vulnerable even before we start to take them away from the farm. And a lot of the work on the clinical characteristics of the sows was done by my colleague Katrine Fosgaard, who has worked so hard with me for several years and now has moved on in her career. But talking about these pick-up pens, I would like to introduce you to two other people who have worked a lot with me. To the left is Katrine Holm, who did her master thesis with us, and to the right it is Karen Todberg. And Karen has been my colleague for many years and has been involved in a lot of the work we have done, and is currently, she's not here now, because we have to hand in a report to the ministry on Monday, so she's back home and working on that one. But what we did in this study was we tried to characterize the clinical and behavioral consequences of on-farm mixing of cull sows. This idea that they are grouped just after weaning and kept for some days or weeks on the farm before they are being picked up. It was a very simple study. In the pictogram in the top, you can basically see the design. We clinically examined them, and then they were grouped and kept for 24 hours and clinically examined again. This was done on farm, in a private farm, and we just followed his management routines, and it was his decision whether, what sows should be included. It was the sows that he planned to send to slaughter. Yeah. And I apologize for the quality of this graph. You don't need to look at the details. Just the message in it is that when we looked at them on each of the graphs that has colors on, you can see first a value that is before they were mixed, and then a value that was 24 hours later after mixing. And the red curve shows you the number of scratches that they had after the mixing. The green one is the number of wounds that we found, and the yellow one is the increase in gait score that also was observed. So things happen when you mix sows at that stage in their life. That is the message. And the graph to the bottom right just gives an overview of how many aggressive interactions, because Katrine also observed aggressive interactions in the sows during the first 6 hours after mixing. And this just is a frequency distribution showing how many, the percentage of sows involved in how many aggressive interactions. And you can see that the majority of sows were involved in between 20 and 30 aggressive interactions during these 6 hours. So things happen when sows are mixed at that stage, which can also be a challenge, of course, for their condition and for their ability to continue on the further journey to the slaughterhouse. I mentioned pickup vehicles, and it has nothing to do with like a traditional pickup truck that you can drive around in the countryside in. It means simply a vehicle. It can be any vehicle that a farmer can use to put his sows into. You can see to the left, the sows are in this vehicle, and if you look carefully, you can see the tractor pulling the vehicle. So the idea is that he removes, or she removes, the sows from the farm and takes them to a spot near a public road, where then the truck can arrive. The truck that may be biosecurely dirty can arrive and pick up the sows. From a biosecurity point of view, I'm sure it's much better than taking the dirty truck very close and backing it up to the buildings where the sows are in. But these pictures are this picture, it's the same truck you can see twice. It is from a a very well-managed farm where there's plenty of space for the sows in the pickup vehicle, sorry, and where there is the vehicle has a roof so that they are protected from the sun, more or less. But there are also many other examples of how pickup trucks can look like, or pick up whatever, and according to Danish legislation, sows can stay in such a vehicle for up to 2 hours before they are being picked up by the commercial truck. And then that is not, these 2 hours are not counted into the transport duration. So they can do that without needing to shorten the duration of the transport that follows. And recently we did some questionnaire surveys asking farmers, do you use these vehicles? And in Denmark, it is approximately 75% of farmers who are using these pickup vehicles for their sows. We also ask them for many questions in the questionnaire study. For example, do you offer them water during the time that they are in the pickup vehicle? And very few of them did that. It's of course important for me to say here that some manage it very, very nicely and just take them to the pickup truck, to the road maybe 5 or 10 minutes before the big truck arrives and is in mobile phone contact with the driver of the big truck. So there they stay in the pickup vehicle. It can be, when it's well managed, it can be very short. When it's not so well managed, it can be longer, of course. And these pictures, they were taken by Louisa Gold, who was formerly a student of mine. Yes, and 2 other of my students did a small study on what happens behaviorally when sows are kept. You can see in those days we called it a transfer vehicle. We weren't really sure what to call the thing. But what they did was they looked at they did a short observational study. You don't need to look at the details. It's mainly to remind me what it said. But they did an observational study of data we had from 11 different farms that had sent sows with use of these vehicles. And the message here is that even though the stays, these were all legal, of course it was part of we were there and collected data, but even though the stays maybe were only 6 or 8 minutes, as you can see in the 2 top lines, there was still aggression going on between the sows. So when they are put into such a vehicle and mixed, they are basically mixed again with someone they don't know, they will fight. And you can also see if you maybe you can't, but it doesn't matter. Just I can tell you that the 2 students, they also looked at how much resting behavior or lying down behavior the sows were showing while they were in those vehicles. And I mean, not so surprising, they don't rest there. It doesn't really happen. I think I've tried up to now to be on the pre-transport stage, and I have tried to convey the message to you that cull sows, the management of them on farm, it is almost unstudied. But there are, and I'm sorry I don't have a lot of solutions to present to you today. That would have been very nice. I think there is lots of potential challenges. There are definitely room for improvement here. But we should also talk about transport, and having talked about animals being vulnerable, it leads to the obvious question whether all animals can be transported. And in Europe we have a regulation on animal transport and also regulation on the concept of fitness for transport. And here it says very clearly that no animal shall be transported unless it is fit for the intended journey, and that all animals shall be transported in conditions guaranteed not to cause them injury or unnecessary suffering. But what does this fit for transport actually mean? Yeah, I'm sorry for this slide, you don't need to read it. The message is just that there are many different codes or guidelines across Europe, in North America, industry guidelines, trying to describe what we mean by an animal being unfit. For example, if they show clear signs of sickness, they cannot be transported. If they have just been born, they cannot be transported. If they are blind, they cannot be transported. But these are mainly focusing on examples of conditions that means that you cannot be transported. But they are not really describing what the concept of fitness for transport means. I think we desperately need a new definition of, or a definition because we don't have any. We need a definition of the concept of fitness for transport. It's also challenging when you work with animals that are already vulnerable to read these two lines in the European legislation that says that if they are injured or present physiological weaknesses or pathological processes, then they cannot be transported. Okay, fine. But then it says further down in the document, however, sick or injured animals may be considered fit for transport if they are just slightly injured or ill. And when are you slightly injured? Maybe you remember I told you that approximately half of the cull sows, they have wounds on their bodies even before they are loaded. It's not necessarily big wounds. It is not. It can be quite small wounds, but they are there. So it depends a lot on how you define injured. I think this regulation leaves a lot of room for improvement and makes it very difficult for the people who have to make the decisions on fitness for transport. Whether it is livestock drivers, it is farmers, or it is the inspecting veterinarians. It's not easy to work in this regulation, I think. And that is maybe striking because it is agreed across the scientific literature, that is what I underlined in red, that fitness for transport is such an important factor for the welfare of animals while they are transported. They should not be unfit. And when that's difficult to determine, we have a challenge. And we tried in one of the surveys we did. We have also in the group done more qualitative research, and we tried to approach the professional groups, the livestock drivers, because now I told you that cull sows hasn't been studied very much, and I need to repeat that sentence when I talk about livestock drivers. They are in my opinion, a very, very understudied professional group, even though they have such a huge responsibility for the animals while they are transported. And in this small study, we asked all livestock drivers that bring sows to one of the large Danish slaughterhouses, we asked them some questions. We asked them about fitness for transport. We asked them, I can't remember the exact wording of the question, but we asked them about doubt about fitness for transport. And they do doubt. Many of them expressed in one or another way that it's difficult for them to make this decision fit or unfit. And when we asked them to list some reasons for their doubt, they mentioned wounds, they mentioned lameness, they mentioned age, thin sows, and also large udders. And I would like you to remember the large udders for a while. And just this a lot of the qualitative work that we have been done together with my colleague Inger Anneberg and Peter Thomsen, who have been very, very helpful in that manner. We also asked the farmers, because they also have a responsibility to make sure that sows are fit for transport. So we also asked them, and we did this in this recent questionnaire survey that was done together with my colleagues from Danish Meat Research Institute, where in the beginning it was Margit Åslund, that's why it's her picture, who is here. We now work with other people too. I will show them in a little while. But also here we asked farmers, if you are in doubt about fitness for transport and cull sows, what are you in doubt about? So this doesn't say how many are doubting, this merely describes when you are in doubt, what is it that is difficult for you? And you can see that they say lameness, they say shoulder ulcers, other wounds, too thin. There are many reasons that they, I don't know if this sow is fit for transport or not. So there definitely is a thing, I think, with fitness for transport. I told you to remember the large udders, and I want to take a break here and introduce to you a relatively new product for export, at least from Denmark, which is sow udders filled with fresh milk. Apparently it is, I have never tasted it. I don't know if any of you have experience, I would like to hear. But it is, apparently it's a delicacy when it is prepared in a certain way. And it means that there is an economical value in sending sows to slaughter soon after weaning, because apparently the udders are best from a gastronomic point of view when filled with milk. But I already talked a bit about sows at weaning, about them having, at weaning is where the milk production is it can't be any higher, where they are normally fed at libitum. They have a very high metabolism, and also these very high liters, or very large liters that at least in some countries have been bred successfully. And I want to try to draw a parallel to the ruminants, because according to the European legislation, ruminants, when they are transported, they must be milked every 12 hours if they are lactating, of course. And in dairy research, there has recently been increasing focus on dry-off of dairy cows from an animal welfare point of view. For example, looking at milk leakage, as you can see on the picture, or udder engorgement. And I think it's, for me, it is striking. I have myself been involved in this dry-off research, and together with my former PhD student, Guilherme Franchi, whom you see here. And it is, for me, striking how little focus there has been, or there is, on the welfare of sows in the days after weaning. That's maybe not so relevant for Humane Slaughter Association unless you transport them at that stage, and that is exactly what happens with many sows. Yes. So what do they look like? What do sows look like at weaning? I have already told you they're not legally protected during transport. The lactating ones, there's no special rules for them. There's no protection of them during dry-off on farm either. And as I said in the beginning, it's not easy to get access to data because it will very easily be confounded by farm, because farmers do things so differently. But as I said, the drivers, when we asked the drivers about fitness for transport, they mentioned, the livestock drivers, they mentioned large udders. And when we asked farmers about it, they had an option to tick large udder as a concern for them, and none did. So they were not really focused on sow udders. This is a video I got from a colleague of mine working I got from a colleague of mine who is here in the room today, so thank you very much, showing sows. I can show it to you again. Showing sows in an assembly center, I think it is, or on the way to a truck. And it is quite easy to see that, at least from some farms, it differs a lot from farm to farm, but from some farms, these were not weaned months ago. These were weaned quite recently. Otherwise, the udders would not have looked like this. And how are sows then transported? Yeah, they are transported by truck. Sometimes they are exported between countries, between European countries. Depends on the market. I have already mentioned the regulations specifying fitness for transport, and there are, of course, also specific requirements for the vehicle and also for the education of the driver. He or she needs to have a competence pass. And in general, in Europe, pigs can be transported up to 24 hours if water is available. That's the same for sows in Europe. But in Denmark, we have special rules for sows, which means that they can only be transported for up to 8 hours. We tried in one of our studies to describe, or we aimed to describe what happens to sows during transport. We wanted to examine the post-transport clinical condition, you can say. And we did that in a study where we very similar, where basically we examined sows before they were loaded, and this is the data you saw from the beginning of my presentation, and then we re-examined them again when they were unloaded. And because this was done in Denmark, it's important for me to emphasize that the journeys were only up to 8 hours. And we had the same approximately 500 sows in our study. And what we saw in short was that after the journeys that differed, it was an observational study and it was commercial journeys, so they differed a lot. There was quite a large range in the duration of the journeys. And we saw overall an increase in the gait score of the sows between before and after transport, an increased occurrence of wounds, an increased occurrence of scratches, and also maybe some signs, maybe not so strong signs, but some signs of dehydration when they were unloaded. I would also like to mention, however, that only very few of them arrived in a condition where they were considered directly unfit for transport when they arrived. So it was more like a general decrease or general deterioration in their clinical condition that we evidenced. And we looked for risk factors, and we could see that temperature was a risk factor already from down around 15 degrees, seemed temperature to be a risk for the deterioration, and especially in interaction with the duration of the journeys. And one thing that's also very important to mention is the stationary periods. When the truck is stationary, temperature increases, and the stationary periods are a challenge for the sows. They are mandated because the drivers, they have to take their driver breaks, but when they do that, temperature increases in the trucks. And I would like to again remind you on the legislation that says that, you have seen this before, that no person shall transport animals or cause animals to be transported in a way likely to cause injury. And then, of course, it's a matter of definition, because these were not massive wounds or massive scratches. That's not what I'm saying. But so it depends on how we define injury, whether the sows get injured or not during transport. And what is this with temperature? Why are sows so vulnerable to heat stress? Yeah, in general, pigs have non-functional, almost non-functional sweat glands. Pigs have relatively small lungs, and pigs have a lot of subcutaneous fat, which means that all this together means that it's difficult for them to dissipate heat. It's of course worse if you have a big body like a sow, if you have a high metabolism. I have said that 10 times now, that sows have a high metabolism. And more and more studies come out documenting that the genetic selection that has been very successful in terms of productivity during the last decades has led to animals that are now much less able to cope with heat stress, because they have this very high metabolic heat production. So we have sows today that are much more vulnerable than they were, for example, 30 years ago. And if you try to find, okay, what can we, if we talk about these concepts about thermal comfort zone or thermoneutral zone, they are of course embedded in some uncertainty, but But the most recent evidence suggests that the thermoneutral zone for a modern lactating sow, the upper limit of the thermoneutral zone may be as low as 22 degrees. And if you talk about a thermal comfort zone, it's likely somewhat lower. So it doesn't need to be very hot before it becomes problematic for sows. Okay, then we did a observational study where we followed 39, not 39 different trucks, but 39 journeys, you can say, with sows from 12 herds. They were transported, was an observational study, so the duration of the transport was not decided by us. And we had sensors in the, for practical reasons, unfortunately, the thermal sensors were kept in the rear compartment at the lower deck in the truck, which is probably where it's least warm in the truck. But for practical reasons, we had these sensors placed there. They were placed 90 centimeters above the floor. And these trucks were standard Danish trucks that are naturally and mechanically ventilated. And we also had access to weather data. And what we saw in that study was that the average temperature inside the trucks was 14 degrees, but ranging from 3 to 26 degrees inside the trucks. And in the summertime, it was significantly warmer inside the trucks. And it's important for me to mention, sorry, there is a misspelling, but that this was done as an observational study, so we could not decide whether we wanted to drive on hot days or not so hot days. So we had only one day where temperatures were higher than 25 degrees outside. So this is actually in a quite moderate climate, the Danish climate. And it's important to keep in mind, I don't want to go into too many technical details here, but it's important to keep in mind that it is always warmer inside the truck than it is outside. So look at the thermometer on the wall and just know, okay, today it's this, and then you will know that it's warmer inside with the trucks. Yes, and this work was done again together with Karen and together with Leslie Foldager, who has worked, a lot with he does a lot of the data analysis for us. And what is this with these hot days? Again, in the questionnaire with the livestock drivers, we asked them about hot days, and they were all painfully aware. All of them answered a clear yes to hot days being a challenge for sows. Of course, they knew. But we also asked the farmers, what do you think? Does the weather matter for the weather outside? Does it matter for sows when transported? And a few of them said, yeah, maybe a little bit. But the overall answer was no. So farmers are not really aware. Seems like farmers are not really aware, if they understood the question correct, that they are not really aware of the issue with hot days. And before I finish, I would like to just show you some of our new data. This is unpublished stuff, so it is preliminary. We have done studies together with Danish Meat Research Institute and Dorte and Joanna, who are here in the room today. We had a very nice cooperation where we were able to do a study where we transported sows either 4, 6, or 8 hours, and half of them had this 45-minute break, the driver break that he needs to do to follow legislation in the middle of their journey. And again, we found an average temperature of around this, in this study it was 17, the average temperature inside the truck, varying from 8 to 30 degrees inside the truck. And this is in a Danish moderate climate, it's important to mention. And I would like to show you, because we were also able to collect behavioral data from the trucks, and I would like to show you what it looks like when you are inside, when you are a sow inside a truck. And the study was done under, you can see there's one who's wearing a heart rate belt, and the study was done under commercial Danish sow density inside the truck. And if you look carefully, you can see that there is one sow just next to the ventilation shutter who is lying down, but the majority of them are not. And you can see that they need to, even though this is a highway driving, it's not a rural road in any way, they need to adjust their now I was in an airport yesterday for a while, and when you are in a bus in the airport, we all know what it's like to be transported to the gate or to the plane. I know that livestock drivers, they are painfully aware of this, and they try to drive as carefully as they can, and I'm not really sure that the drivers of buses, it just doesn't feel like that all the time, I think, in the airport, that the drivers of buses are careful. I think they are under time pressure, but we know the feeling that we need to balance or stabilize, and so does the animals. And the message in these preliminary data is that lying behavior while sows are transported is limited. What you see here is during the 8 hours of the journeys, and on the y-axis, I apologize for the Danish, but it is the number of sows observed lying down. And there were 12 sows in each compartment, and you can see that even though there is a large variation, that not a lot of resting goes on while they are in transit. And again, for practical reasons, this was filmed in the rear compartment on the lower deck. So this is probably where the temperature was lowest in the truck. And as I said, done in a commercial Danish truck and a commercial Danish stocking density. And what I have been speaking about sow fighting a lot, and I also want to show you some data on that. This is from the same study, and on the y-axis you can see the number of aggressive interactions during the journey. And remember that there are 12 sows in the compartment, but even though there are 12 sows in the compartment, we see much more, 10, 20 interactions, aggressive interactions, or even more, per hour. So a lot of fighting goes on, and the aggression, maybe it decreases slightly over time. It hasn't been analyzed statistically, but I don't think so. It seems like it's just an unchanging thing going on. And I would be super interested in knowing, in countries where sows are transported on longer journeys, how the behavior looks there. Yes, my final point is, because this is a HSA, so we should also talk a bit about slaughter, I think. So I would like to just end on a note talking about behavior of sows in lairage pens. Because when we arrived at slaughterhouses in our transport studies, it reminded us, oh, has anyone ever looked at behavior of sows in lairage pens? And it seems to be not so many who has looked at that. And it probably differs quite a lot from country to country, but at least where I come from, it is not, let me say, it's relatively typical that sows are kept in the lairage pens for hours before they are slaughtered, and maybe even also overnight. And it is of course done for socio-economic reasons. I am painfully aware of that, but it means that they will have to be there in these pens for many hours, and this is after being transported. And in our recent project, my colleagues and my student have been observing behavior of cull sows when kept in lairage at slaughterhouses. And what you see to the right is a picture from a Danish slaughterhouse and a lairage pen with sows. And I deliberately took this quite calm picture to show you. It can look quite calm. Here they are resting. Almost all of them are resting, and they do absolutely rest there, but not all the time. Not all the time. The aggressions that I told you about from on farm, in the truck, and they go on in the slaughterhouse. It takes a long time for sows that have just met each other to establish a hierarchy, and therefore they just continue. They likely also, I don't know if they fight over resources, they might. In Denmark, they are fed in lairage pens if they are there overnight, but they are just fed on the floor, and if they are definitely very hungry at that stage, so that can easily create some interactions over resources. And I just want to show you quickly, this is data from the student project that hasn't been published yet, so it's a preliminary data where you can see she observed the behavior of the cull sows while they were in the lairage pens overnight, and it's clear to see this is the blue one is the total aggressive interactions, and the gray one is the interactions where she thought that some kind of resource was involved, feed or water typically, and you can see that especially in the beginning of the stay in the lairage pens there is a lot of aggression going on. So if the idea with the lairage pens is for the animals to calm down after being stressed during transport, it takes a while at least for them to do that. So with this, I would like to finish my presentation. I will be happy to take questions or to discuss with you both here during the Q&A session and absolutely also during the rest of the day. I'm sorry I couldn't be here yesterday, but I will be here for the remainder of the day. And I am also easy to find if you have questions for me or if you want to interact with me in any way after the conference. I think I have tried to show you that when it comes to cull sows, challenges are not difficult to find. They are challenged by their clinical condition. They are challenged by their sensitivity to heat stress. They are challenged, and they are challenged for us in the working with the concept of fitness for transport. They are challenged by the journey, and they are challenged by lairage. And I'm sorry to end on this dark note, having documented all the challenges. I think for the future, it's time to start to find solutions. So maybe we could start there. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mette. That was a wonderful talk and a very important summary of some really significant problems. So, would anyone like to ask any questions or suggest some solutions we can start to work towards? There's one there, Charlie. If you... Charlie, can you just give the mic across, please?
We need to find out to who.
Bas Rodenburg, Utrecht University. Thank you very much, Mette, for this great overview. You started by saying also you apply the One Welfare perspective.
Yes.
And you also showed that you also interview the drivers, interview the farmers.
Yes.
Is this also, this participatory approach, do you take this further? Is it also like feeding back to them and trying to improve together? Can you say a bit more about that?
I can. I think it's very good you raised this question, Bas. I think the transport of cull sows and the fitness issues are what we almost can call a wicked problem. And when we work with wicked problems, we need to do exactly as you say. We need to interact with all the stakeholders in the problem to try to solve it. And it is, it has, the project that we just finished with Danish Meat Research Institute actually involves such, it has involved and it will also in the future involve such engagement with the different stakeholders. I think it's super important. And it should be, in my opinion, more and more included also in future research projects. Yes.
I'm just going to quickly interject with a vaguely related question there, which was, it was clear that the farmers know less about the problems than the drivers, so is it worth just actually having them talk to some transport drivers and learn from them what the problems they're seeing are?
I think it's a good suggestion. To having the stakeholders to communicate is very, very important, and some are very good at it already, and do it as I also told you with these pickup vehicles. They are in just communicating with each other and trying to do everything as smooth as they can for the animals, but probably not all of them. And it can be, I think there has been an unfortunate situation in the recent years where there's been, at least in Denmark, a lot of discussion on the responsibility, who is responsible for fitness for transport assessment. And when it comes to a situation where you and I need to discuss, is it your responsibility of mine, then maybe we are not working so much together. We start to confront each other more than if we could say, okay, let's share the responsibility and let's do this as good as we can. But it is important.
Thank you. There was one down there.
Thank you for the great presentation. I have one more question. Is the time so spending in the vehicles on the farm already time or part of the transport time, the 8 hours?
That's a good question. According to the Danish legislation, they are allowed to be there for 2 hours. That does not count as part of the journey time. But if they are there more than 2 hours, then it should count as a journey time. Yeah. But it's of course difficult to I'm not the authorities. I don't really know how they inspect that. I would think it's not so easy.
Sorry, hand over there somewhere.
Jos Houdijk, SRUC Edinburgh. A small question and a suggestion. Small question at the start. You said over 80% of sows are culled. Does it mean about 20% of sows die on farm? That seems
No, they don't die on farm themselves, but some are also killed on farm. There is a significant proportion of sows that either die or are killed on farm. And I cannot, if you want to go into details with the numbers, then I need to go back and check.
Okay. Well, that kind of brings me to a potential, I'm not saying solution, but consideration. Later today we're hearing about on-farm slaughter. Yeah. Is that ultimately a solution to get rid of almost all of these issues?
It would get rid of many of them. I don't know whether it has any financially livable future, but yes, from a sow perspective, from an animal welfare perspective, it would get rid of almost all this. Yes, I agree.
Yeah, Charlie Mason from the Humane Slaughter Association. Congratulations, Mette, on the receiving our award and also on that fascinating and very informative presentation. As someone who many years ago in a previous life was heavily involved with the direct marketing of cull sows and cull cows, I was appreciative of the problems, but also I found that compelling listening. And I was actually going to ask about the previous questioner, I beg your pardon, that there's a pilot scheme in the north of the Netherlands at the moment where dairy cows which are considered too lame to travel are being slaughtered on the farm and the carcass is transported. And I was going to ask you, do you see this as a possible solution? Probably not for every cull sow, but for some of those that are in poorer condition.
I do, but I focus on animal welfare, and I know that there are many, it's not easy to start to do like that because there will be many issues related to how to do it. So it's easy for me to say that it's a solution. From an animal welfare point of view, it can be a solution, yes. And I know the decision from farmers when they have to decide, is she fit for transport or not? The sow, if she's not, then she needs to be killed on farm. And it is, if she's, even maybe she's not fit for transport, but she can still be fit for human consumption. And therefore it is a resource matter also. The question about how many sows die on farm, I mean, if they die, then we probably won't eat them, but if they are just killed on farm, some can still be eaten by people. And it's not just it can also be a resource thing not to throw food away.
I mean, a couple of observations that Denmark is a relatively small country. And in the UK, I believe there are only 3 or 4 premises that are processing cull sows. One in Scotland, one in the south of England, one in the middle, I think I think one in East Anglia. And I think probably, the problems you've got where your transport distances and lengths of journey are probably not as long as here, then a similar study would be very useful from from the UK point of view. One thing I did pick up on there was that sows are very different. I was going to say kettle of fish. They're a different load of pigs to grower pigs.
Yeah.
I used to buy a dozen pigs from a farmer in Nottingham and probably select from 4 or 5 different pens. And we never stayed around for a cup of tea. We put them straight on the trailer and drove off. And an hour and a half later, they'd sorted all their problems out. They went into the pen and there was no fighting at all when they got to the farm. But sows seem to fight for a lot longer and take a lot longer time to
Yes,
sort
I
out
think
the
that's
problems.
also known from because not, yeah, it is some years ago now, but when Europe went from having gestating sows kept one-on-one and to having them in groups, there a lot of focus came to how sows are mixed and to what it means to mix them. And it is known that they also in that situation, while on farm when mixed, that the fighting will go on for a while. Yeah.
Thank you.
Let's go over there.
Thanks. I'm Andrew Vose. I'm a vet from the Scottish Government. Very interesting talk. My question is about fitness to transport, which I know is incredibly difficult, and people do have to make individual judgments.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, in Denmark, is there any understanding that sows might be maybe fit for a short length of transport? So you may say that, okay, this sow isn't really fit for an 8-hour journey, but it might be fit, maybe moved direct to a local abattoir that might be an hour away, or is that a possibility in Denmark?
Yes, it is of course a challenge because, as we heard, there are only few slaughterhouses that take sows. So if there is, I mean, maybe there is a fixed distance, but there are possibilities in Denmark to transport them. Oh, I can't remember what it's called in English, but there are like protected transport, so that you can keep them one-on-one, or you can give them extra space, stuff like that. So you can transport animals that are fit, but with reduced fitness. Yes, it is a possibility. But from a research point of view, there is very little evidence to how it should be done and how it should not be done, and whether it's actually helping to try to do it like that.
If I could ask about temperature as well. Did you consider looking at humidity as well as recording temperature?
Yes, that is. Thank you for that question. It's an obvious one, and yes, we did record also the humidity, and of course the higher the humidity, if you measure temperature in dry temperature, then you need to take into consideration the humidity in order to get the effective temperature. Sure, but it was just not reported in that study. No.
I had a naive question again. Is there something that could be done to get more Danish abattoirs to accept sows?
That one you need to ask them, but I think it will be. For the large ones, it's impossible, I would think, due to it's robotic and automatic everything, and it's fitted to the carcass of a finisher. So I think they simply can't. But if we talk very small slaughterhouses, like just, few guys working there, then of course they can, but it will be very few animals. The others can't, I think.
I was going to throw a question, maybe it's actually at Charlie as well. Of course, we've had problems in the UK with oversized animals that can't go to abattoirs as well, so that might also help in that situation.
Yeah, I think the majority of those problems were with cattle, but it is pertinent. Could I just ask another question that I forgot? I'm just interested, what's the average age of the cull sow in Denmark?
There are no studies of with representative samples, so I can't tell you the average. But from our studies, it seems to be around 5, an average of a parity 5. It's not age.
5 years.
No. 5 parities, which is much less than 5 years. Yeah.
Perhaps Alan Ward could tell us what's the average over here. 2 to 3 years old.
I can't hear it, yeah. It's okay, it's okay. As long as it's not a question. Oh, that's online, okay.
Yeah,
Then it's
the
not.
AgriSoft data shows that after fifth parity, most guys cull their sows because the production goes down after fifth parity.
Yeah.
Any other questions out there?
No, that's good.
Points for discussion? Or suggestions for solutions, if anyone's got one? There's one, yes.
Thank you for the wonderful presentation. My name is Masha Abrahamse. In the Netherlands, we started in October with some extra guidelines for fit for transport. Does it also be launched in Denmark? It's EU extra guidelines.
There are the Danish, as far as I'm aware now, I am not the government, so I don't know every detail, but I don't work directly for the government. In Denmark there has been developed special guidelines for fitness for transport for pigs in general and for cattle in general, and they also include, there are also different parts of that involve sows. Yes.
Okay, yeah, in October they started with that project, and it specifically had some extra information about specific needs for sows with some extra, and it did help to reduce the number of sows were non-fit for transport. But then they remain at the farms, and what happens then?
Yes, that's the thing. Thank you. That's nice to hear.
Yeah, they still not finished it, but they keep progressing, etc. But it's interesting.
Absolutely, I agree.
Charlie's got another question.
Sorry, it's me again. I would assume that most of the sales in Denmark are coming from, not from outdoor herds. Outdoor herds of animals?
Outdoor? No, they come from indoor.
I'm just wondering, and open to the room as well as Mette, with outdoor herds, which we have a lot of in the UK, where the sows are wandering together, might the social problems of mixing at this time be less? Anybody, any ideas?
I think it will, irrespectively, my answer will be that irrespectively of whether they're kept indoor or outdoor, if you mix them with sows that they don't know, you will have the same trouble. And especially if you take them from just after weaning, where they have been with their piglets for a while, it's very difficult to, you can of course match them. These two know each other, so they should be in the compartment together, but that is unrealistic. So the risk of mixing them will be there either if it is indoor or outdoor, I would think.
Yeah, I'm thinking when I see the big outdoor herds that maybe these, I don't know, do they mix much, Alan, in one of these big fields? Do they interact, or do they keep in their little groups?
Mike, yeah.
Yeah, in outdoor herds they are mixed quite a bit too, I would say, yeah. It's the same as indoors.
Is that a question?
Okay, if there's no more questions out there. Is there? Oh, there is one, sorry.
Yes, sorry, just thinking about the high temperatures, I'm just wondering if there are any people trying cooling sows in the pens waiting for collection on the vehicles or in the abattoir lairages with sprinkler systems or
No, it's such a good question. I know that there are slaughterhouses in Denmark that are now focusing on the period where the trucks arrive at the slaughterhouse, because often it takes time to unload the sows and there will be some waiting time in front of the slaughterhouse where temperature will go up. And they are starting to work on different devices to extra ventilation, whatever, things to shade, for example, just to be able to that the trucks are not waiting in the sun, but are waiting in the shade. to focus on this waiting period where the trucks are stationary. So I think it's coming, and I think also it should happen in the transit stage as well, but it's not so easy. But I would think that that would be also a solution, instead of not just the on-farm slaughter. It can also be solutions that focus on making the journeys easier for the animals, for example, by reducing temperature. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you, everyone. I think it's almost time for our break, so I'm just going to say congratulations again, Mette, for highlighting a really important problem, and I'm at least going to take away that analogy of the airport transfer bus and think of cull sows every time I'm on one of those buses. So thank you, and congratulations again for really important work that's making a real difference. Thank you. Okay, so coffee and tea is served in the library, and we'll come back at 11 o'clock, please.